Take warning, you better take warning. Take warning, you better do good. Let your light shine. Take warning, you better take warning. Take warning, you better do good. Let your light shine bright. Let your light shine bright. Respect your fellow man as you should. Take warning, you better take warning. Take warning, you better do good. Let your light shine bright. Let your light shine bright. Respect your fellow man as you should. The evil that men do lives after them. The evil that men do lives after them. Your evil today will blight your tomorrow. So do good today and avoid your sorrow. Take warning, you better take warning. Take warning, you better do good. Let your light shine bright. Let your light shine bright. Respect your fellow man as you should. Take warning, you better take warning. Take warning, you better do good. Let your light shine bright. Let your light shine bright. Respect your fellow man as you should. The evil that men do lives after them. The evil that men do lives after them. Your evil today will blight your tomorrow. So do good today and avoid your sorrow.
Take the message, everybody.
Take warning, you better take warning. Take warning, you better do good. Let your light shine.
All right, then. Hey, good morning. Sorry about the late start. Blackout, the usual thing. Blackout in Guyana. I guess Tom Anderson is accustomed to that blackout. Those of you who have shared the link already, thank you so much. And those of you who haven't as yet, we thank you in advance to let folks know that we are on. And we are going to be talking about the inauguration of Donald Trump. This is his second inauguration, and lots of things on top of people's minds. Immigration and some of the executive orders anticipated, and then executive orders to undo what President Biden actually started. So there's going to be a lot of executive orders. Tom Anderson, on this day, before we get into that, it's a special day. It's a Dr. Martin Luther King holiday. Dr. Martin Luther King had a dream, and that dream came into reality. First Black president, lots of other different things, desegregation, you name it. But it looks as though we are heading down some murky water, so to speak. Good morning to you, Mr. Anderson.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is a great day today, blessed day today, great to be on. And, let's buckle up and get ready for a crazy ride.
Buckle up and get ready for a crazy ride. And let me say that while you folks are buckling up and preparing for a crazy ride, some crazy agendas, some crazy executive orders, put your seatbelt on. Put your seatbelts on because you've got to be cautious along this bumpy roads. There are going to be quite a few bumpy roads. And speaking of bumpy roads, let me just ask Tom this quick question. Tom, as it pertains to the posthumous pardon of Marcus Garvey by President Biden, what is your take on that, sir?
Well, I mean, man, too bad Obama didn't do that. I was surprised Obama didn't do that. So, yeah, man, look, it's better late than never. Posthumously, he got the pardon. This is it just goes to show that, for everyone in Guyana and everyone in the Caribbean and everyone around the world who is listening and who is watching, that, this has been a long road we've been on. And so many people have been fighting on this road for so long that even now, decades later, after, this guy, Marcus, was attacked politically and he was kicked out of the country back to Jamaica over this. Very great man. It took this long for him to finally, for his memory to get the justice that he deserves. So this is a long fight, man. This is something that is generational. It continues today. We can't forget it. And so it's a good thing that he got it today, because it's a good reminder to all of us what we face and what we will continue to face.
That is so true, what we face and what we'll continue to face. You touched on something some folks in the audience might say, but many folks thought, including yours truly, that this would have happened on the first Black president of the United States of America. It never happened. It just never happened. And then I think an approach was made under Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton served for 2 terms. It never happened. And then the final days of President Joe Biden decided that that's what he's going to do. But let me take time out to publicly congratulate one of the leaders in this campaign to have Marcus Garvey pardon is Congresswoman of New York, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. Congratulations to Congresswoman Yvette Clarke and others. But I know Congresswoman Yvette Clarke has been speaking out of that. She mentioned it a few times on this program, on this radio station as well. And so congratulations to not only the people of Jamaica, but not only Jamaicans are proud of this, non-Jamaicans are very proud of this. And so Yvette Clarke also led that way. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. All right, so good morning to all of you. If you're now joining us, we have a few things we want to talk about. But before we get to that, I want to show our viewers, Tom. I want them to see something that has happened in Guyana. And it's been happening in that country for a while. We're a $1 billion economy, but people are being neglected. I want you, as well as others, Mr. Anderson, to listen to a quick clip of a doctor at a nursing facility, a health facility out in Guyana, right not too far from the country's airport. Listen to this, and it may not shock you. It may not shock a lot of folks.
Anymore. Then we have delay. I am not a member of the community of Tamari, but I work here. I'm the only doctor at Tamari Health Center. So I serve this community every day. And I'm here this afternoon because I have some concerns about the facilities that we have at the health center. I have concerns about us not getting drugs in a timely manner. We have to ration out drugs. We have to tell patients, well, you can't get 2 months of drugs this month. You could only get 1. You're going to have to check back in with us to see if we have the medication for you. A few months ago, we were out of simple things like Panadol. We had to ask our patients to be buying nasal drops for their babies when they're when they have colds, right? We When I first came to Temeri Health Center, we didn't even have blades to incise abscesses or gloves, right? I had spent my own money, bought the gloves, bought the blades, came to work, did my best for this community. I'm advocating for the staff at the health center. We've currently been without flushable toilets for several months. We're fetching water in buckets to flush the toilet for the staff at the health center. We have had issues where the health centers have been flooding because of the toilets. So we're having to dispose of our limited supplies. When the water gets in and soaks the gauze and all of those things, we have to dispose of those things. We're not able to use them anymore. Then we have delays in getting the medication to us, getting the supplies to us. I don't know if it's because that you were coming today, they sent some supplies yesterday to tide us over. You know how those things go. We don't have any AC in our pharmacy bond. So the pharmacist has to turn on her outside AC, open the door, and she's often cold to ensure that the drugs are stored at the right temperature. We have trees growing onto the building. We've asked for those trees to be cut down. The compound hasn't been weeded since November. We have trees growing onto the building. That's eventually going to cause a problem with the roof. So we have a lot of concerns with the health center. We don't have a permanent cleaner. We don't have a clerk. So we have two pathway workers. They come in more than their 10 days because they recognize the need for us to be clean and tidy, and they work more than the time they're supposed to help us out. But we have to carry a lot of that weight.
That is unfortunate.
Only thing you got from him there, Irfan, that is unfortunate. $1 billion economy is supposed to be the fastest growing economy in the world. What is your take on what you just heard there, Mr. Anderson?
Oh man, Mark, it's more of the same. Hi again, everyone who just I see a bunch of people jumped on in the comment section. Hello, Hazel. Yeah, this is more. This is what for the past few years as I've come on, I've said, and I was saying this before the oil money came in, that the leadership in Guyana, they have to make a decision as to what type of country they want to be, what type of nation do they want to be. Do they want to be this place where, like Jack Dale says, the nation's open for business for all of these outsiders around the world to basically come in and strip the nation of its natural resources for cash for the elite? Or does it want to be, do the leaders of Guyana want the nation to be more of a leader in the region, in South America, in Central America, a leader in showing the rest of the world that there's a priority placed on the health care system, on education, on fair trade and commerce, on the judiciary, on upholding law and order? I mean, is that where they want to go, or do they want to go to having a poor nation with a few wealthy people at the top that are basically selling everything off to the highest bidder, to whoever comes? And it just looks like, they're choosing to go the easy route, which is just stay wealthy themselves and sell the country out. And maybe they don't know any better, but it takes people like us to have to come on day in and day out to constantly remind them, hey man, there's another way to do this where they can be wealthy, and at the same time, everyone in the nation can be wealthy. But what it takes is for them to focus in on the healthcare situation, to focus in on the schools, to focus in on the people, to make sure that people are being trained and that they are in a position where they can feed themselves, where they can go out and work a great job instead of having to rob a Chinese grocery store for food, for example. So yeah, this is an ongoing problem. The people of Guyana are going to have to choose themselves. Which way do they want to go? Do they want to continue this route, or do they want to have a nation that is one that leads the region? That's the question.
That's the question indeed. A black chicken economy. These black chickens, the regime, they went into a particular community, black chickens, so they chose the color of the community to go into, to distribute 400 of these black chickens. And The black chickens are going for maybe about between $50 to $80 per one. 80 between $50 or $80 per one of these chickens, and they decided to choose one community, the same color of the chicken, to hand out 400 of these. And when you do the math on that, it's way under 50,000 Guyana dollars. So they went into a community distributing just about 200 or so US dollars to that community, and they're claiming it as a success story. And it hasn't stopped there, Tom. They gone into, and they put somebody who has been who's a convicted individual and also an alleged child molester, to go into another community to distribute black tanks to store black water, because that's the sort black and brown water you're getting from the Guyana Water Incorporated. So lots and lots of confusion in Guyana, even as we speak. So now, even with the budget, this is what a woman is saying, that with this over $1.3 trillion budget, this is what this woman is saying. This budget is not for the poor public servants threshold. 130,000 Guyana dollars a month can't work. And that 1,000 Guyana dollars, Tom, just so that folks who are non-Guyanese who are watching, that $130 is equivalent to about 600 US. So majority of Guyanese in this so-called billion-dollar economy, fastest growing economy in the world, they are making just about 600 US dollars per month. Imagine you making 600 US dollars per month, or I making 600. Well, I'm a different story, but just imagine people making 600 US dollars per month, Tom. Can you imagine what people are going through in Guyana in this oil-rich economy?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is, more of the same, but I can't imagine in the United States people making that, because I live near people who make that. And growing up, my family was poor at times, and my dad had to work a couple of jobs. And I remember even one time he had to walk about 15 miles because his car broke down, and he had to walk home, take a shower, and go walk back another 5 miles to his second job. Right. So like, I've seen it, and it happens here, and it's unfortunate. But what has to be the focus going forward is a government that takes serious the predicament of the people in Guyana, a government that takes serious and steps in and makes sure that there's the proper infrastructure in place, and that there's a system in place to ensure that the oil money and the other money coming in for the gold and everything else that's being mined in the nation is being sent back to the nation, to the people who are living in Guyana, to ensure that they aren't living poverty-stricken lives, to ensure that they aren't in a position where when they have a sick child, they go to the hospital and there's no toilets, there's no eye drops, there's not even gauze, for example, where trees are overgrowing the buildings and knocking the roof off. Like, that stuff has to be taken care of, but the only way to do it is to have a proper system in place. And it just seems like, the people in charge in Guyana just don't have the wherewithal to get that system in place, to take it serious enough to make sure that every Guyana dollar is accounted for, that every single ounce of gold that's taken out of the nation, that there's a tax paid on that. They just don't have the wherewithal, or they don't have it within themselves to ensure that that's occurring. But it's unfortunate, because if they just did that, then the entire nation would be much more wealthier. And on top of that, Guyana would be in a position, like I've been saying, to lead the region, right? And that's what this region needs is good governance by countries like Guyana, because the only way the region is going to prosper is if nations like Guyana and others at the top economically get their situation straight, to make sure that everybody is being benefited within the region, and not just outside powers who are coming in to basically strip the place of its wealth and leave everyone downtrodden and poor.
strip the nation of its wealth indeed reminds me of when you get up in the morning in places like Brooklyn and Queens also, and maybe some parts of Florida and California, wherever, not just Brooklyn, mind you. And you look and you see your car is just stripped. That's what's happening with the nation's wealth in Guyana. It's being stripped. And soon you'll have no wheels, you'll have no engine, you'll have no battery, you'll have absolutely nothing, and you'll be running on shell. Just no pun intended on shell, because we spoke about gold and how people evaded hundreds of millions, billions of Guyana dollars in taxes, evasion of taxes. And some of these same people running around dashing a little wheelchair here and wheelchair there, thinking that, oh, we're giving to the poor, but they're not telling how much those who are guilty of that, mind you, how much they have robbed the nation of its taxes. And just imagine what the country would have been like if these so-called overnight billionaires and millionaires in Guyana, whether they're smuggling gold, whether they're smuggling whatever, just imagine if they were paying their taxes. How beautiful Guyana would have been. People would have had, everyone who needed a wheelchair would have had a wheelchair. But for now, some are scattering wheelchair here and there, building a little small house here and there, pretending as though they're giving back. But they're not telling you how much they have, according to information, robbed the nation of billions of dollars in taxes. But that's for another story, another time.
Well, I'll tell you this too, Mark. The
Sure.
other thing is, and I see Hazel, she mentioned the government eyes past the citizens, and that what's happening is the government, the leaders in Guyana, they haven't realized yet that the true wealth of Guyana are the citizens, is the people. That if you put investment in the people, into the people of Guyana, if you make sure that they're reaping the benefits of what the nation was blessed with, then everyone, including the leadership, lives a much better life, right? That's what people are forgetting. At the top there is that it's the people. That's the greatest investment that anyone in Guyana can make, no matter what level you're at, whether high or low. Investing your time, investing your efforts, investing everything you have into the nation, into the people of Guyana. If that's done, everything will be taken care of. And I think she's correct. That's what they're missing, and that's what they're forgetting. And it's sad, because that's the most important thing right now for them to do.
And it is the most important thing for them to do. And we are not surprised that they're not doing it. Those of you who are now joining us, thank you for sharing the link. Thank you for joining us. It's 10:30. This is a pre-inaugural or pre-inauguration of Trump's second term. And so we're having a discussion. We're just talking a little bit about Guyana before we get over to the U.S. Trump is going to be inaugurated at noon today. It's ice cold outside, and I mean ice from the snow. Is ice cold outside, and so Trump is going to do his inauguration function show indoors. We are told that 40 years or so ago, another president, no comparison there. Trump cannot compare himself to Ronald Reagan, but he wants to do that. That Ronald Reagan did it indoors, and so he's doing it indoors too. I don't know what's the significance, but there's nothing major there, other than there's a big difference between Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan. Okay, so Tom, the other thing we want to talk about as we move over to the United States of America, what is your take now on this inauguration set for midday? What are some of the things you can talk to us about that some of your colleagues and maybe friends in the Trump administration, incoming Trump administration, may have whispered to you?
Well, the focus is right now is just his personal safety. That's why they're having it indoors. They're really worried that there are enemies all around, and they're looking to end his life. And so that's why they're having it indoors. That's why everyone is so buttoned up about everything, because these guys, from their perspective, Trump's coming in and he's facing some enemies who will do anything to eliminate him. And so that's how they're coming into this administration. That's how they're starting off. They're starting off basically on a war footing. And on that war footing, they're viewing people within this nation as the hidden threat that is constantly looking to even assassinate Trump at any moment. And so that's where they're coming in. And you know, from my perspective, it's you know, that's a little bit unhinged. I think it's a bad way to come into an administration. I think it sets the wrong tone, that there are enemies within the nation that they have to root out and seek out and kill and destroy, I guess, whatever they're thinking of. So it just shows that they're starting off with, you know, basically going to war, and it's war here at home, and they're taking it deathly serious. So that's where this is starting out to begin with.
You know, Tom, it's a sad case scenario as well. And all incoming U.S. presidents, or all U.S. presidents, have to be extra careful. And I'm sure that there is nothing really that unique at this time. But I get where you're coming from in terms of different times. Ever since the assassination of John F. Kennedy Jr., John F. Kennedy, who was assassinated. And then there was an attempted assassination on Ronald Reagan as well, maybe others. But what we know at this point in time is that it is not necessarily the weather that is preventing Trump from holding that inauguration event outdoors. Knowing Trump, knowing his personality, it can be 0 degrees. It can be under 0 degrees. He's going to want to hold that regardless of what outside to show the numbers. But it is probably, as you alluded to, much more than that. It's probably for security reasons. And we can understand that as well. Tom, as we take our glasses and peek into some of the executive orders, Trump is going to definitely undo a lot of things that Biden has issued executive orders on. One of the things I'm concerned about in terms of, well, not necessarily concerned about, but I have a bet, so to speak, that he's going to undo the executive order that Biden issued declaring that Cuba is no longer a terrorist state. Do you think he's going to undo that?
I mean, maybe not. You know, that's a coin toss on that one. Here's the issue, right? So even the people who were released from prisons in Cuba for, you know, who were political prisoners that you know were released with the deal, because not only did Biden take them off the terrorist watch list, but with that the Cubans released a bunch of political prisoners, and the prisoners, when they got released, were mad at Biden, and they said that he had been duped, that they should have kept the sanctions on them. But I think the issue really here, if you really think about it and really look at it in its historical context, you know, this is more Cold War stuff. And so I don't know if Trump is going to push Cuba back into the Cold War era of things and putting them back on the terrorist watch list, right? Like, I don't know. I think we're moving to a point now where all this Cold War stuff, where Cuba was isolated out and other nations were put under sanctions and stuff like that, I think those times may be over. I think the Cold War is finally over. I think what we're seeing in Europe and Ukraine, I think what we're seeing with Trump talking about taking Greenland, this is all proof that the Cold War is over, that Western Europe has fallen back a few steps. They're in trouble. And so I don't know how much longer Cuba is going to be under this iron wall of sanctions that we've placed on them, because all of that was Cold War stuff. And I just think that the world has moved on. So Trump might want to go back in time and recreate the Cold War and have Cuba back on the list and try to recreate a situation where there's a dictator in Cuba like Castro, and we're playing spy games and we're doing all this stuff like we used to in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I just don't think it's applicable anymore. I think those days are gone. And so Biden taking them off of the terror list is more about Biden actually issuing in reality, in that the Cold War is over and nations like Cuba are going to come out from underneath it, and they're going to be different nations going forward, nothing like they were in the past. So I don't know if Trump is going to reverse it. I think this might be one of those things that stays in place.
Any strength there coming from Marco Rubio, who has been very quiet? That's unlike Marco when he was first appointed, and that appointment made public, or Trump's intention to appoint him as the next Secretary of State. Marco Rubio was very, very outspoken. Oh, I'm going to do this, and we haven't heard a word since then from Marco Rubio. How much of an influence Marco Rubio will have with this executive order to release Cuba from the terrorist watch list? His background, of course, being Cuban. How much of an influence do you think he would have to twist the Trump's administration right away to say, no, they have to undo that executive order?
He does. He will have a lot of influence, because the way sanctions work in the United States is the president is who puts a nation on sanctions, or an individual. But in order for the president to do that, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the Secretary of Homeland Security, they all have to sign off as well. And so he's going to have a lot of influence on that. And yes, he can push hard in that situation, but he still needs to get Trump to sign it. And he still needs to get Homeland Security and DOJ and these other guys on board. And I don't know if they're going to be on board, because like I say, I think the world has changed. I think the Cold War is over. People I see in the comments are saying Cuba is going to join BRICS. Maybe, they might. But here's the thing. If they have access to Western banks and Western capital in US dollars and euros, I mean, do they really want to go with the Chinese yuan? Do they really want to go with some other nation's currency far, far away from their own shores? Or is it easier to do business by opening up their country to Canadians and to Americans? Yeah, I just think if you look at it geographically, a Cuba going forward that is more aligned with the Western economies of the world is one that I think that's the future that we're looking at here. And yeah, that Cuba might have had this past of being anti-American and all this other stuff with the Cold War. But like I say, the Cold War is over. And if you look at what's going on in the world, the influences that basically cemented Cuba into that position of being anti-American, those influences are gone. The world has changed a lot. A lot of those people who put that in place, they aren't here anymore. And so you have a situation where the church, the Catholic Church, has a lot of influence. They were the ones, it was the Pope behind the scenes working with Biden to get this deal done. And I'm going to tell you, if you look at the church, they're suffering. And if you look at who their real parishioners are, who are the real churchgoers in this world, a lot of those people for the Catholic Church are in nations that under sanctions that deal with the Cold War. And I just think those days are gone. And I think you're going to have the Vatican pushing hard to ensure that Cuba gets, reintegrated into the Western world economy.
All right, Tom Anderson there, 41 minutes after 10 o'clock, just a little over an hour from now. Trump will be sworn in as the next president of the United States of America. He will be doing so for the second time, a second term. Many folks are of the view that he's going to be brutal in some areas, and they're very concerned, and rightly so. But before we get into those other topics, let's just say diplomats are resigning in mass before Trump takes office. This is nothing new. This is nothing unusual. Diplomats would have to tender their resignations whenever there's a new government in place, a new president being elected. And in this case, by midday today, they will have to submit their resignations. And some may have been told already not to submit their resignations. But based on this headline, Mr. Anderson, diplomats are resigning in mass before Trump takes over. And it could be diplomats at the State Department. It could be ambassadors and so forth around the world, U.S. ambassadors. What is your take and knowledge that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, just looking at, the work I've done in the past and things I've been looking at and working on recently, a lot of diplomats are going to be leaving. With that said, you have to look at Marco Rubio again. he, as Secretary of State, he's not going to be the kind of guy who's going to direct and oversee on a micro level who's going where diplomatically around the world. I think he's more of a guy that's going to take a list from his advisors and from other people that he listens to, and he's just going to go by that list. That's what he has tended to do as a senator. I think that's what he's going to do as Secretary of State. And so whatever is going on diplomatically within the groups who are around Trump, that's going to be reflected now going forward around the world. What's interesting is if you notice, Trump didn't allow Mike Pompeo back in. And when it comes to Guyana, that's a big deal because Pompeo was like we pointed out a few months ago, he was hanging around the PPP and looking to, cut some deals and stuff like that. Well, he isn't anywhere in the picture now. And that's very interesting. So I think there may be some surprises diplomatically. I think when you also look at the Western Hemisphere, the one man who used to control all of the diplomatic appointments in the Western Hemisphere from about the early 2000s all the way up until just a couple of years ago was Senator Bob Menendez. He literally controlled all of the diplomatic appointments. No one could put anybody in place, ambassadorial or otherwise, in the Western Hemisphere without his okay. All right. And so he's facing sentencing for his bribery conviction, acting as a foreign agent for Egypt and another, I think, Qatar. And so he is going to jail, or I didn't see him get a pardon from Biden. Maybe he gets one from Trump, a commutation, but he's nowhere on the scene. So what we're going to see in the Western Hemisphere diplomatically is something radically new that the world has never seen before coming from the United States. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how this goes. And I would also keep my eye on Panama with what Trump has been saying about the canal. So yeah, there's going to be some surprises here. These diplomats are resigning en masse like they always do. But we are going to see a diplomatic approach in a foreign policy in the Western Hemisphere like none other before. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people, and I'll be right on top of it. I'll be back on the show to talk as it's happening.
Certainly, it's not a surprise. Diplomats do resign whenever there's an incoming administration, especially when there's a new president of a new party. Diplomats who have been appointed as ambassadors wherever, they see the need to resign. And it's up to the administration to accept the resignation or to allow them to stay in their post. In this case, the ambassador, U.S. ambassador to Guyana, may have already submitted her resignation, and that is according to the policy. So there's nothing unusual. What they will do now is review these applicants and say, okay, here what? You can stay for another year or another 2 years or until your term is up. And the question is now, and I don't know how some of you in the audience are seeing this, will Guyana have a new ambassador other than what we have right now there, U.S. ambassador to Guyana? Any predictions, any take on that, Tom?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's going to be an entirely new diplomatic corps across the board in the Western Hemisphere. I'm serious when I say that. There has been a serious shakeup within the United States hierarchy when it comes to diplomatic appointments in the Western Hemisphere specifically. Okay, because like I said, Senator Bob Menendez, he was the guy who controlled it all for a few decades now.
You know, somebody may ask a question, and I may ask this question. In a democracy, you have checks and balances, the executive branch, the judicial, and you have the legislative. How is it possible in the Senate, in the U.S. Congress or so, that you have one man who was later deemed to be corrupt as Bob Menendez? He has been convicted. How is it possible? How is it possible for him to control that entire Western Hemisphere, to say who should be the next ambassador or not?
Well, when you are as high level as he was, and he was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and so let me give the viewers an idea of what that means. Okay, so the president of the United States can do a lot of things, but the the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in some ways is more powerful than the president of the United States. And I'll give you where that applies. So when it comes to weapon sales and any type of military aid to any nation around the world, okay, any nation, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee has to personally sign off on every single bullet that goes to any nation anywhere on the planet. The president doesn't even have that say. Okay? So when a man has that type of power where he can decide who gets American bullets and who doesn't, you better believe he can choose who gets to be a diplomat where and who doesn't. That's how that works.
All right. Just so you guys know, the confirmation, as much as Bob Menendez was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, a very powerful committee. And Bob Menendez, being a very senior senator at that time, he felt that he wanted that cushy position. So he gets to make the decision. And who goes to China and who doesn't, and who goes to Russia and who doesn't, and who goes to maybe Guyana and other places. And Bob is no longer there, but according to this NBC News, rebuffed by Biden, former Senator Bob Menendez, who's been convicted, mind you, seeks a pardon from Trump. Now, do you think that Trump will be inclined to pardon Menendez or not? Early o'clock.
I don't think so. You'll see in the media, some people say, oh no, Trump is more likely to pardon him. He thinks that Bob Menendez was politically persecuted and wrongfully convicted or whatever. They don't know what Trump thinks, first of all, right? But secondly, I know this. I know a lot about Senator Bob Menendez. I'm writing a book on him right now. So in my book, part of the research into him is, some of the stuff that he had done as chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to Trump and the Trump organization. Okay, so first of all, he voted twice to impeach President Trump, twice. He also went after Trump Jr. and the Trump organization with their business practices around the world. He actually sent letters out to 5 different nations telling them that they needed to hand over anything they knew about business operations of the Trump organization in their nations so that he could go after them and that his committee could investigate them. So you have a situation here where Bob Menendez has personally pressed down, used his power to go after Trump personally on a business level. He voted twice to impeach him. Okay. And on top of that, Bob Menendez tried to author legislation to give every single immigrant in America amnesty, period, flat out. And that's just totally against everything Trump believes. So I don't know if he's going to get a pardon from Trump, man. I don't know. To me, it's going to be some heavy lifting and some people.
Definitely. He has worked along Senator Marco Rubio as well, who these guys are very close to Trump. He has worked alongside J.D. Vance, even though J.D. is a new kid on the block, so to speak. But you're speaking of all these things that Bob Menendez voted against Trump. Fair enough. But here's a man who is soon to become, in just about an hour or so, soon to become the vice president. Was about to say the prime minister, but a vice president of the United States of America, who had a lot of horrible things to say about Trump. But yet he's there.
It's one thing to say some stuff, and you're right about that, by the way. Trump is surrounded by people who have said publicly they hate him. Tucker Carlson, text messages. Tucker Carlson in text messages were telling people he viscerally hates Trump. He thinks he's a disgusting human being. And if you see, Tucker Carlson is best friends with Trump Jr. now. And they're picking who gets to go where within the administration.
Exactly.
So Trump is surrounded by people who hate him, who have said they hate him, who have done things to stab him in the back. You are correct. But with that said, Tucker Carlson didn't vote twice to impeach Trump, right? Tucker Carlson didn't try to create an investigation, an international investigation to get other nations to hand over secret business deals or whatever to try to get Trump thrown into prison. That's a whole nother thing right there. So that's the issue, right? Can all the people around Trump who hate him but kiss his butt now, can they lie enough to get Bob Menendez a pardon out of Trump? Because they're going to have to lie to Trump. They're going to have to try to tell him, no, Bob likes you. Bob never tried to investigate you or Trump.
The guy to do that trick might be Marco Rubio, who is said to be the next Secretary of State of the United States, or maybe J.D. Vance.
Or one of those guys, right? They're going to have to lie. But I don't know how far the lie goes because, like I say, he went after them personally. Senator Menendez, as chairman of Foreign Relations, sent letters directly to Trump himself and his personal attorney going after him. So I don't know how much those lies are going to work, man.
You never know. It's politics, right? He may try to justify pardoning others by using guys like Bob Menendez. So don't be surprised if he pardons Bob. Speaking of pardon, and pardon me, mind you, New York City's mayor met recently with President-elect Donald Trump at his Florida's mansion. I bet they had a sit down for about 20 minutes or 15 minutes until maybe Elon Musk stepped in for a meeting with Trump. But any questionable signs you're seeing there coming out of the mayor's office of New York City as it pertains to him playing games with Trump?
That's a mess, Mark. That's a mess. And, the Trump people are kind of, they've made Eric Adams a clown. Like they clown that guy. They talk trash about that guy. They make fun of him because they all know that he's trying to get a pardon and he'll do whatever it takes, kiss at all kinds of butt, do whatever it takes to get that pardon. And so part of what he's doing is he's handing the city over to Trump's, immigration czar guy. Right. And so the New York City police force is going to be working for the Trump administration, not for the mayor of New York, not for the people of New York City. That's not who they work for anymore. They work for Tom Homan, whatever his name is. That's what they work for now because Adams needs that help so bad. Right now, will he get it? I don't know. He might, but it's embarrassing. It's the situation. It's sad. He's out here saying now that, he's being prosecuted because the prosecutor wanted to make his career look good. It's like, nah, bro. The prosecutor is going after Adams because Adams is a corrupt elected official. And everyone knows it. Everybody knows it. Even everybody knows that this man is corrupt. So we'll see what kind of deal is cut. But for now, the only thing we need to worry about is the New York City Police Department is working for the federal government as long as Mayor Adams is in place.
And that's kind of like worrying. It's nothing is wrong with cooperation with federal law enforcement agency in the interest of national security. But to go after citizens, to persecute citizens, as what we're hearing right now, and the current mayor of New York City seemed to be a willing participant to that. However, his newly appointed commissioner of police is not necessarily going for that. And what I observed is after that meeting with Trump, the body language and the utterances coming from the mayor of New York City, it appears that it wasn't the best of meeting. It wasn't what he was expecting. And so as it pertains to New York City being a sanctuary, New York being a sanctuary state, where is the law? The laws are there to protect citizens, undocumented individuals, that those individuals' personal immigration information ought not to be shared with law enforcement agencies, federal agencies, unless it is of national security interest. For me, the good thing out of that is the New York City mayor is saying, and the commissioner of police, the NYPD saying, no. They are not going to be cooperating to that extent. Do you believe that?
No, I think Mayor Adams, he might try to be tough and say, "Oh, I'm gonna try to stand the line, and I'll work with the feds, I'll work with the Trump administration, but I'm not going to let them abuse the city of New York." If he wants to get off of those charges, he is going to have to hand the entire city over to the White House. Period. Anything less than that, and Adams is going to go to jail. So,
all right,
that's the bottom line.
so that's the exchange. You expect a new Trump's appointed New York attorney for the Eastern District to just immediately say that's it. They're dropping all charges against Eric Adams, right? Is that your prediction?
I think a Southern District is where he's at, right?
Is it the Southern or Eastern District?
Yeah, it's Southern District. He's at Southern.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they're gonna want all Pam Bondi, once she becomes Attorney General, she's gonna order that case gets shut down. If this guy, if he hands the city over to the White House, that's so
so he can kiss his chances goodbye unless he switches, and there seems to be a sign there that he may switch. He may be a Bloomberg, albeit Bloomberg, Democrat, then Independent, then Republican. He may jump from being a Democrat to becoming the Republican candidate for the next mayoral elections, his re-election.
He might.
Do you see that happening with Eric Adams?
Because, I mean, that's who he is, right? He really is a Republican. The only reason why he's a Democrat is because you cannot win elections in New York City unless you're a Democrat. There's a handful of Republicans, and that's because the neighborhoods they represent are like 90% Republican voting.
Well, some people, Tom, may say Eric Adams, when he was borough president of Brooklyn, and he held other positions there in Brooklyn, he was a different Eric Adams than what you're seeing right now.
No, he wasn't. Nah, man. Nah, this guy, he would be a Republican. I'm telling you now. If New York City had a regular type of political situation, Adams would be a Republican, not a Democrat. There's just no way. The only reason why he's a Democrat is because of that machine, and you can't get ahead politically unless you're a Democrat in New York City. So nah, man, he's really a Republican. All right, he's always been that.
And so there's no chances that he will be reelected as mayor of New York City. And I think he sees that writing on the wall, right?
He knows it, because if you look at when he got in trouble, when he first got indicted, he had a big photo thing, and he had the podium out, and he had all of his supporters behind him. But when you looked at the supporters, they were nobodies, people you never even recognized. He had one pastor. The guy was so old. He had to be almost 100 years old. Like, all of the support that you would need in order to get reelected, he has lost all of it. And the reason why is because everyone knows he's corrupt. Everybody in New York knows he's corrupt, man. So he's got nowhere to hide. His only option, really is to get off of these charges. And the only way to do that is to cut a deal with the White House. And I just know how the Trump people roll, man. If they're going to cut a deal with a guy who has no options, who can't get reelected, they want the whole cake, and they want to eat it too, period. And if he isn't willing to hand that over, then he's not going to get off.
All right. He still has, about a year or so more before the elections campaign starts here in New York City to either dump Eric Adams, and that seems to be the talk around town, dumping of Eric Adams. And I don't know who's going to be running. Maybe Curtis Sliwa, the guy from the Guardian Angels, will give a shot at it again. Who knows? Maybe Trump will put somebody to run up against.
Bloomberg might come back.
I doubt. Do you really think Bloomberg?
He's a billionaire. He can fund his own campaign, bro.
It's going to be interesting if Bloomberg returns, wanting to run for a fourth term, knowing the billionaires who Trump is surrounded by. You have the Elon Musk, you have the Mark Zuckerberg, you have the Bozos, you have all of those guys. Now is going to be billionaires versus billionaires. How interesting is that going to be?
That's the world we're in now, man. We are in an oligarch world, and that's what this is all about. If people want to know what's going to happen in the future, just look to what the billionaires are doing. That's all you need to know, because that's who's controlling the country right now.
Tom Anderson, and to all of our listeners, wherever you are, in just about 58 minutes or so, Donald Trump will be sworn in for the second term. A second term. Some people are staying away. Nancy Pelosi, former House Speaker, is staying away. Other Democrats, whether they are in the Senate or the Congress, they're staying away. Some other people are staying away. Michelle Obama, she's staying away. She hasn't attended the funeral there for former President Jimmy Carter. We see some speculations, people love to talk on social media that there might be some sort of split between her and her husband. I don't want to get into that, but I saw that and I smiled when I saw it. What's happening there that Michelle Obama has not attended a funeral service for the late President Carter, and she is not attending, according to reports, she is not attending the inauguration of Donald Trump. What's happening there?
Well, it's interesting because if you really look at the situation there with her and Barack Obama, it's one where Obama, being the former president, he still has, connections to the world of power. He still has sway. He still has a role to play in this world as a world leader, believe it or not. That's how it is with presidents. Even when you're out of office, especially if you're still young like Obama is, he still has a lot of influence. And so he just can't walk away from that. It's not like he could just one day wake up in the morning, decide, I'm not going to be Barack Obama anymore. I'm not going to have any influence on the world anymore. He can't make that choice. He's stuck. He's going to be an influential guy no matter what. If he listens to a certain song on his summer music playlist, guess what happens? Everybody finds out what it is. So he has no escape. When it comes to Michelle Obama, though, she doesn't have to live that life. Okay, she doesn't have to be in that world of influence because she wasn't the former she's not the former president. And so when it comes to all these different events where former presidents are dying, Barack Obama has to go. He doesn't have a choice. Michelle doesn't have to do it, bro. And I think the way from just my look on it from the outside, they have been, the world has changed because of technology. And what's happened now is people like herself and her husband, they become abused in the social media world, in the world of public persona and perception. They have taken a lot of abuse, okay? And they have been gone after, they have been threatened, and it has been non-stop, just unending. And then from her perspective, I could see as a Black woman, she's looking at the nation and she's saying to herself, wait a minute, like everything that I've believed in and fought for throughout my entire life, it's all being undone. Like women's rights when it comes to their health and dealing with their own sexual organs. The Supreme Court in deciding a bunch of other things. She's, I think, just done with it all. And I think she's saying, you know what? I don't have to be a part of this. I refuse to be a part of it. And that's her way of making her statement to the world that, she does not approve of this and she's done with it. And I can understand why she would be that way, because they really have come under attack. Even Trump personally has attacked her. Right. So it's just it's tough for someone like a spouse to have to live through that. Whereas with Obama, he doesn't have a choice, man. Even if he tries to do like Michelle and not show up, it actually makes it more. It actually hurts him more to not show up to these things, because then people are going to wonder, like, what's going on with him? And the pressure on him is going to be, well, you see, that's what happens when you have a Black president. Look at that. They don't know how to be presidential when they leave office. Every other president, no matter what, shows up, and this guy, because he's a Black guy, that's going to be the criticism. So he has to deal with that kind of criticism. And so what does he do? He shows up. He still plays the game. He's still in the game. So she's decided she's out, and I don't blame her. I mean, if I were in her position, I think most people would probably decide to be out on that. Now, when it comes to their marriage, I don't know what it means when it comes to their marriage personally, but I do know this. Barack Obama doesn't have a choice. Michelle Obama does, and she's making her choice, and it's pretty obvious what that choice is all about.
All right, well said, Tom. We've got to listen to Hazel Johnson. She seems to be the star for this morning. Already has 2 mentions from you. She got one from me now. She says, "Leave Michelle Obama alone." leave her alone. All right, we'll do so. So Johnson, and good morning to Lynette Nelson. Good morning to Gary Greenwich. Is there any one of them as we prepare for the next his second inauguration of Donald Trump in just about 43 minutes? I know you may want to say good morning to some folks who are watching right now in the audience there, listening.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming on and listening, and I appreciate it. And Hazel, she's a star today. And she's right. Leave Michelle alone. Seriously, man, she needs to be left alone. For real, she needs to be left alone. Now, Barack, people can still mess with that guy. You can tell he's still in the game. He's still doing things. He's still playing around in that crazy world that is the former president, powerful political world. But Michelle, leave her alone.
Well, he's still as former president, he has access to all of the top secrets, top documents, and so forth that he has to review. All right, so as we prepare to usher in the United States of America a new president in just about 42 minutes from now, in the cold, all of the Supreme Court justices are going to be there. All of them are going to be there, or most of them will be there. Your good friend Clarence Thomas is going to be there. How, and forgive me for using the word dangerous it is for democracy, when you have judges in the highest court of the United States are playing political football games. People are concerned because there are lots of serious cases that will be sent to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, especially immigration and so forth and so on. How confident are you the likes of a Clarence Thomas will vote in favor of the law and not in favor of Donald Trump?
Oh, man, there's no way to know how things are going to go when it comes to the Supreme Court. They have... I don't talk about the Supreme Court much because, I believe they've always been political. I believe it's always been a court that's had issues. That's just the way it goes. I mean, look, you can go back to FDR, where he was replacing people wholesale on that court, man, and just decimating it because it really is a political post. At the end of the day, people think they're judges, they're outside of politics. Nah, man, the Supreme Court is very political. And they play a lot of political games. So I have no idea where they're going to go on anything, to tell you the truth. But I will say this.
But Tom, before you say this, stick a pin. We all have an idea as to where and how Clarence Thomas votes. It has been consistent. He has been consistent. He has never voted on the side of any sort of individuals fighting for rights and so forth. It has been a one-way ever since he was nominated or appointed, subsequently going through that senatorial hearing with regards to Anita Hill and so forth. Since then, it has not been anything different from Clarence Thomas in terms of his voting pattern on the bench. If it's one thing we can say about him, is that he has been consistent in his pattern of voting. So nothing is new. We can predict where he is going to vote, but we can't predict where the others, for the most part, are and how they are going to vote.
Well, Mark, here's the issue, right? And yeah, you're right about that. But here's where I think that scenario does change sometimes. Okay, there are certain cases where, depending on how the court comes down, it can actually take power away from the Supreme Court. And I think those are the areas where you will find Clarence Thomas siding with the lowly and the people he normally doesn't side with, if it's a situation where it ensures that the power of the court is maintained.
But Tom, we haven't seen that in a while, if at all, unless you can name one time that he has voted with the "quote unquote" lowly of the court.
I think he has a few times, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm telling you, there are instances where if they aren't careful, they can actually create judgments that eviscerate their power as Supreme Court justices, and they're not going to do that. And that's the thing people should understand. The number one job of the Supreme Court justices is to ensure that the court remains powerful. That's their number one job. Everything else comes from there.
But you can't play. That's what the judicial branch is all about, is to protect their interests. The judiciary protect their interests. We have seen that before. I think there was a landmark case where they were reviewing in terms of judicial powers of the judiciary, the arms of the judiciary. They will fight the executive. They will fight the legislative branch and so forth, to say, hey, that is our responsibility. You guys cannot impede on that. And if you need to do that, then you have to pass a law telling us that it is unconstitutional. But for now, we in the U.S. Supreme Court, we have that power. So I see where you're coming from, that Clarence Thomas will vote as it pertains to maintaining that status quo.
But that's why it's incumbent upon people coming before the court to strategize and realize, hey, if I can align what my clients are looking for, and these people may be the downtrodden people that Clarence Thomas never cares about, but if they can get their case to the Supreme Court in a strategic way that makes it so that the court itself has to side with their clients in order to maintain their power, that's how you do it. It's not Clarence Thomas's fault that people haven't figured that out, right? And so that's what has to happen. If you're a smart litigator, you strategize your cases in a way, if they go to Supreme Court, to make it so that the only way the court can rule is with your clients, because if they don't rule with your clients, they will eviscerate their own power. That's the name of the game. And so I that's why I say, when it comes to the courts, it seems like they're so powerful and they're so devious, but at the end of the day, they're very simple-minded. They want to take care of their power and their stature and their authority. That's the number one thing that they care about. And if attorneys can come before them and make it so that their clients align with the court's power, that's how you win. And that's what you got to do. So it's incumbent on the people coming before the court to be smart enough to angle their cases strategically in a way to make it happen, so that the court has to side with them in order for the court to maintain its authority.
All right, Tom Anderson, 14 minutes after 11 o'clock, just about 46 minutes or so, Donald J. Trump is set to become the next president of the United States of America for a second term. All eyes are right now in Washington, D.C., where it's very cold. The roads are icy, no pun intended on that. But as we go back into the Supreme Court's ruling, or how judges are usually set to rule on cases, we saw consistency as it pertains to justice, true justice, when the first Black man was elected to the Supreme Court, or Black person elected to the Supreme Court back in several decades ago, by the name of Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall voted in interest of the people and the Constitution. And so it wasn't a case whereas people thought that Clarence Thomas was just basically there and he didn't know what he was going to do. He was the number one lawyer stepping out of the NAACP and so forth. Clarence Thomas is just the opposite of the coin. For many folks of African descent and others, he is basically a letdown. And that is why people are not confident in this current makeup, for the most part, of the U.S. Supreme Court, with the likes of a Clarence Thomas. And then mention is being made of his wife and the connection to MAGA and so forth. How much of an influence do you think his wife may have on him when it pertains to rulings? Yeah, Clarence Thomas.
Massive interest, man. Like she holds massive weight in his life. He's Batman, she's Robin. Like straight up. So like she's got massive influence, man. And yes, he is an ultra conservative, and that's where he's going to be, and it will never change. That is correct. And yes, a lot of people, Black people around the world, have been disappointed in his rulings and the stances that he's taken over the years, right? But at the end of the day, like I say, it really is incumbent upon those people who may have a problem with him to strategize in a way to force him to have to align with their interests. That's what you got to do. And by the way, there are ways to do it, and there's no way for him to get out of it as a judge. There are times when he's going to have to line up with what he may not want to line up with just to secure his own power. And that's what it's all about, in my opinion, man. That's how I see this. That's why I don't really mess with the court too much, because to me, it's actually it's a problem that's easily fixed. It's just, it takes strategizing, and it takes people with enough wherewithal to orchestrate their cases in a way to force these justices to have to side with their clients. That's just the bottom line.
All right, Trump is just in under 42 minutes or so will be sworn in as the next president of the United States of America for a second term. Of course, there was a gap in between. This time he's going in maybe with the same personality, but it's slightly different this time. He's going in with about 34 felony convictions. Never before has this ever happened in the United States of America. People seem not to be bothered about that, right? Most people. It seems to be the norm now. What's happening?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part. What were you saying?
Yeah. So it seems to know, like this is going to be the norm now, where folks with 34 plus felony convictions are heading into the Oval Office to take control of possibly the most powerful country in the world. How dangerous is this for democracy?
I mean, we have entered this zone, man, where, it used to be you wouldn't be able to use the Justice Department and the legal system to go after someone as powerful as Trump. It just would never happen in the past. Well, now all bets are off. It doesn't matter who you are in America. The courts will come after you. The system will come after you. And I think that's indicative of the Me Too movement, where you saw over the past few years that there were powerful men in Hollywood and other places that back in the day, they would never see justice, ever, never, not never. And the Me Too movement overturned that and opened the door now for the elite in our country to have to face the tunes sometimes. And so that's what's happening with Trump. And so I don't know if it's so much so that the criminals are getting elected. I think what's happening is we've always had people who were criminal element, but because of their money and their power, they were never prosecuted. Well, that has changed, and much because of the Me Too movement. And so because of that, we're going to have a situation now where some criminals are going to make it into office. And the reason why that's the case is because the elite now are being affected by the law. So to me, it's a good and a bad, right? But I think it's more good, actually, because we have to have a situation where the elite are brought to account and where the elite have to face charges sometimes. And another example of that is Diddy. He's the kind of man that in the past would never, ever, ever get prosecuted. And what do you see? He's getting prosecuted. Another one, Senator Bob Menendez. In the past, the guy that powerful would never, ever, ever get prosecuted. Well, he's been prosecuted. And so, yeah, it's bad that we have criminals, people who have been found guilty of crimes, getting elected to be president. It's bad. But at the same time, it's good because it proves that no one's untouchable. Nobody's untouchable. Okay, everybody can be touched now, and by the way, if we aren't allowing the justice system to go after everyone, you have a situation like this vigilante justice with the United Healthcare CEO, where people will start just gunning these elite people down in the streets in the morning as they walk the street in the morning. You don't want that. So yeah, between Me Too and the other movements, Black Lives Matter brought a lot of justice to the situation where police who would never get prosecuted in the past have gone to jail. They forced body cams to be on every police officer now around the country. So what we're seeing is these are strange times. These are different times. But what I see is, the elite are subjected now to everything that even us down at the bottom are subjected to. And that's in a way a very good thing.
All right. In a way, that's the operative word. We see some other lunatics across the world are giving the impression and flexing their muscles, so to speak, based on their wealth, that they can just hand out a few wheelchairs and hand out a few things after ripping the nation off of hundreds of millions and billions of dollars of evasion of taxes. Feel that they can run for office too. Some have been sanctioned by the U.S. and some are wanted by U.S. law enforcement agencies for serious crimes such as terrorism, money laundering, assassinations, and all things. The road ahead, the road ahead. We're watching at the road ahead. We are definitely watching.
Oh, the boss is in the
There
room.
we are. There we go. The
Emma's the boss.
road ahead. I got you, sweetheart. All right, I got you. Yeah, the road ahead. Tom, speaking of the road ahead, yeah, here's what it is. Lots of people are basically on edge right now. You know, it's a winter storm. The snow is all over. Ice is all over the place. I'm talking about snow and ice, that is. But we're in this context, we're talking about a different ice. And it says here that New York organizations on alert after reports of ICE ramping up arrests in New York, in Chicago, in California, and so forth. ICE, basically, they're saying the moment Trump is sworn in as president of the United States of America, ICE will be making raids across those states that are supposed to be sanctuary states, such as New York. Now, sanctuary simply means that you are protected. Undocumented folks are protected, that immigration officers cannot just raid you just like that. They cannot walk into the schools. They cannot walk into churches and so forth and so on. But that seems to be the case, as though Trump administration doesn't care about what they do. They're going to go after individuals, regardless of whether their civil rights are being, their human rights are being disrespected or infringed upon. But what we're getting here, a couple hours ago, according to news, that President-elect Donald Trump handpicked Bordazar, Tom Homan, has said he is reconsidering the immediate immigration raids on Chicago and New York after details about the plan were leaked online. So the detail about the plan was actually leaked. Now they're backpedaling, saying, no. We are reconsidering that. Do you believe any word? And what is your take on this potential raids?
Well, I just want to say a little shout out to Commissioner Cole, by the way. She's right. No more oligarchs that are untouchable. Correct. I agree. And yes, I'm not talking about the cartoon when I say Batman and Robin. I'm talking about like the movie, like Gotham City. That's, Justice Thomas and his wife. They are the Gotham City movie version of Batman and Robin. Like, they ain't having it. Okay. So this is not the cartoon. So yeah, shout out to Commissioner Cole. And you know what? I say this to her because she's a human rights person, and that's what this is coming down to, right? Is human rights. And that's why they have to be careful, the Trump administration, because it's important to get criminal element out of our nation, because we do have people here who are straight up criminals, and they are here just to commit crimes and to victimize innocent Americans. Yes, that is the case, and we got to go after those people. But at the same time, what we cannot do in going after them is violating the human rights of people who deserve to be here, because there are people here who have fled tyranny, and we have always been a nation that believes in human rights and believes in providing brave people, especially who stood up to tyranny abroad and who had to flee their homelands. We have always welcomed them with open arms. Okay, and we still do. So they have to be careful on this. The Trump administration can't be so heavy-handed that they are hurting people that don't deserve to be hurt. Okay, that they are violating human rights. And so when this guy Holman says, oh, they're backing up a little bit, one of the reasons why is because no matter how you want to cut it, ICE is still a government agency. And the reality is government doesn't really work that good in America. Our government agencies aren't really that good. Okay, they're not. They don't perform well. And so when their plans are being leaked, on top of the fact that they don't perform that well, you run for Homan. He runs into a potential possibility where something embarrassing happens. Let's say, something really embarrassing happens, and that causes him to have to be removed. And it also messes up the administration's attempts to deal with, the immigration issue that we have. So that's why he's taking a step back, because he knows that even though he has a lot of power, and even though the Trump administration has given him a mandate to go after every illegal in the country, he knows that if he makes a big mistake, he doesn't really have a second chance. He's not a cat. He doesn't have 9 lives. If he makes a huge mistake, he's going to be bounced, and he doesn't want that. So that's what this is, I think, is him taking a step back to make sure that a big mistake isn't perpetrated that embarrasses everybody, including Trump, and forces him to be kicked out of office. This guy.
And there is that potential for a big mistake, because targeting the immigrant community, and I agree with you that criminal elements have to be targeted, and that's what they're targeting, those who have serious crimes, serious convictions and so forth, who are undocumented. I don't think anybody is against that. And those who are undocumented, mind you, no one has. But one of the things that I'm concerned about is that they are already admitting that innocent people will get caught up in this hole. Innocent individuals who are here legally, or those who are here undocumented, but the law permits them, immigration law permits them to adjust their statuses and to make themselves right. That to me is again infringing on the rights of those individuals who by law have that right to file for adjustment of status or whatever it is to remain in the United States of America. People are concerned that this is going to be a broad brush, that almost everyone is going to be touched as it pertains to the immigration front of things. You think the court, Tom, is going to be tolerant with the Trump's administration and infringing and trying to basically cut up immigration policies?
Well, it's going to be hit or miss, man. There's going to be some forces within the court who are going to just streamline everything for this administration. There's going to be other forces within the court who are going to be, roadblocks and get in the way and make it really difficult. And so that's why I say, man, like it seems like on the surface, right, that Trump's win over Kamala Harris gave Trump a mandate. But when you just scratch below the surface, there are a few things that you realize that create a situation when it comes to our immigration policy. It creates a tougher situation that people want to accept, especially Trump supporters. And it's this. Here's the reality. If Elon Musk hadn't dropped about $500 million worth of dark money into the campaign, Trump doesn't win. And that's not coming from me. That's coming from Steve Bannon, the #1 MAGA guy. He said publicly already, hey, man, it's because of Elon Musk's money that we won. He has said it, and they know it. And so when you have a situation where, you have a president in office, and the only reason why he's in office is because of a billionaire and his dark money being plugged into our system. And by the way, yeah, Elon Musk, he takes credit for that $500 million or so that was dropped in. But the reality is we have a system that doesn't really track the money. So that may not have been Elon Musk's money. He might have just been the caretaker for a hand of billionaires, not even from the United States, from other nations. We don't know, right? And so you have a situation where this is far from a mandate if you really look at the reality of the situation. So you have a Trump administration here who they only got in because of a billionaire and a bunch of dark money cash. And what? They're going to upturn the entire immigrant community across the country? I don't know if that works. So yeah, there's been a lot of rhetoric and a lot of talk. But when you really look at the situation, I think they have to be very cautious on how they handle this. And the reason why is because I'm going to go back into the human rights again. no matter how you want to cut it. In America, Americans care about human rights. We do not want to be a nation where we are abusing innocent people. We want to be a nation that we defend the rights of innocent people, no matter who you are from around the world. And so the Trump administration, no matter how you want to cut it, they have to stay with that vision that even their own voters believe in. Okay. And that isn't easy to do. So this is very, very complicated. They're going to have to take their time, as Holman has said. Oh, we have to step back a little bit. They're going to have to take their time. They're going to be very strategic, and they're going to have to work with immigrant communities, with sanctuary cities, in order to do right by the country, in order to get the job done that they promised coming in when they ran, when Trump ran for the presidency. So to be able to actually make an impact on the immigration, they're going to have to do this in a more conscious way and in a way that's more inclusive, not just ramming down the door and kicking everybody out.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, and there will be serious pushback on that. And so here's where I say to individuals, do not panic. Be concerned. Yes, it's okay to be concerned, but do not panic. What do you think of that, saying to people, do not panic? Be concerned, be smart, be cautious, but do not panic that the Trump administration cannot just trample upon the rights of the people. Holman cannot trample upon your rights, barge into states and say, hey, we don't care about this. They've got to be concerned about the laws, because there are immigration groups out there who are prepared, who have hundreds upon hundreds of lawyers who are there to fight for the rights of every undocumented person whose rights are deserved, mind you, to be fought for. And this is a time where you've got to be extra careful. In some attorneys out there who are entering into the mode of scaremongering individuals in order to make money off of them, in order to fleece individuals who are caught up in this situation. Be extra careful on that front as well. Tom, you did mention that they have to follow the law. You did mention that Holman is pulling back a little because he realized that his sort of fiction is basically unrealistic. And once you get into that position, you get to realize that it is different from talking from the outside. Once he gets in there, he would understand that there are certain laws, there are certain rules and regulations that you have to stick by that. If you don't, he can end up running himself into some serious legal problems.
That's right. That's what's happening. I mean, the reality hits hard, man. And this is not, look, if this was something that was easy to fix, it would have been fixed before, long before. The Trump administration would have fixed it their first time around, but they couldn't. Remember, Trump goes, oh, we're going to build a wall and we're going to build it with Mexican money. And what happened? There's no wall. And no, the Mexicans didn't pay for anything. Okay, I'm sorry, but reality hits hard. Okay. And the reality on this is immigration is a very, very difficult problem to deal with. And the reason why it's hard to deal with is because of the human rights factor that's involved. Okay, there is a huge human rights issue on this, and it goes beyond whatever rhetoric people have on the campaign trail. It actually hits real people. And by the way, it affects people who really matter, even though they're not elite. There are people who are here who have run from tyranny, who have come here, who deserve to be here, who work hard. And those people nothing should come on their head in any way bad, not in the United States of America. And Surely. So that's a big deal. And I'm telling you, these guys are wary of that. They understand that. They don't want to go after the good people who have come here, you know, fleeing tyranny, and who actually bring to the table so much wealth when it comes to their culture, when it comes to what they bring to our nation with their hard work. They pay taxes. Like this is a serious deal. And it's like I say, it's easy to talk a good game on the campaign trail and on TV cameras. But when you actually have to get in and do the job, look, man, those ICE agents, they don't want to go after innocent, hardworking people just because their boss got on TV and was talking trash. That's not how it works, man. We're not like that. Americans are not like that. So this is very difficult. That's why the problem still exists to this day, and it's going to take a team effort from everyone in order to fix it.
Well said, Tom. Immigrants have come into this, folks have come into this country as legal immigrants. Some of them have come into this country from fleeing from tyranny and all manner of things. There are a few who came for different reasons, and we can understand why those few who are in the U.S. for different reasons ought to be targeted and talking for criminal reasons. But there are millions of people who are here just to make a better life for themselves and their families. Some of them have even gone on. Their kids have joined the military. Their kids are being productive citizens. They're graduating from universities, high schools. They've become lawyers, doctors, teachers, and all manner of things. They're going to fight for the United States of America, whether they are citizen or they're the holder of a green card. And one of the good things is that once you join the military, the U.S. military, and you have a green card, you will, within a very short space of time, become United States citizens, citizens of the United States of America, while you go out in other places to fight for the country. And many of those MAGA people are not military people. They have not joined up to fight. Some of them complain that they have toe problems, bone problems, whatever. They don't want to go and fight. But these very immigrants and kids of these immigrants who are in the United States of America wanting to make a better life, no different from those who came from Germany and other places, if you know what I mean, Ireland and wherever they came from. Everyone in their family has someone who came from somewhere, except the people who we came and met here, who are the indigenous indigenous Americans. The indigenous Americans have every right to tell everybody, get out of here, including those who came from Australia, Ireland, in the Caribbean, wherever. But no, we are seeing those who came here and benefited from the immigration system, their grandparents, their great-grandparents, and so forth. They're the ones who are telling people now that the immigrants got to go. What if the indigenous Americans told their foreparents that they had to go to? Hey, history, we've got to be careful of this history. We've got to be careful of how we treat people. But let me say to folks, be careful. Do not allow certain lawyers to back you up against the wall and scaremonger you. Do not allow that to happen. Tom Anderson is correct. There is the law. And this incoming Trump administration, regardless of what they may say when they are outside, the minute they get inside the Oval Office, inside running the administration, they have to follow the law. If the incoming Bordazar doesn't follow the law, he can find himself in some serious hot water, so to speak. The other thing is we don't want happening is, and I repeat, the other thing we don't want happening is for any disaster, where folks out in Texas, wherever, start shooting undocumented or persons they deem as undocumented. It's something we do not want, because the slightest error, we can see thousands of people into the streets protesting. There is a way to do it. I think under, who was it, Tom? I believe it was there was this comprehensive immigration approach under Reagan, and then a little bit under Bill Clinton, albeit thousands of people got deported under Bill Clinton. But there's always been an approach to settle this immigration matters. Now Trump is using or attempting to use the wrong approach. There are hundreds of thousands of young people who are basically DACA recipients. What's going to happen to those individuals? There are thousands of asylum applications with people who flee from tyranny, dictatorships, torture, brutality in their respective countries. What's going to happen to those individuals? There are individuals who flee their country as a result of being persecuted because of their sexual orientation. What's going to happen to those individuals? It is a human rights issue, and human rights issue is an issue for all of us. What are you going to pack those individuals up and send them back to their countries so that they can be slaughtered, so that they can be killed as a result of their political affiliation, as a result of their sexual orientation? What about those mothers and fathers who have children who are fighting for America right now, and those parents are at the moment undocumented? Are you going to send them back to their homeland while their children remain here to fight for the likes of a Hoban, to fight for the likes of a Trump who evaded being drafted into the army? Is that what this is all about? Is this the America we want? Look, I have many relatives and friends who are serving in the U.S. military, who have put their lives and continue to put their lives on the line for every single American, whether they're MAGA or whether they're not MAGA at all. Because it appears as though the MAGA wants to take us back to this famous reggae song. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Tom. Sorry for MAGA dog. MAGA dog turn around, bite you. In this situation, Tom, I'm a little bit worked up, and do forgive me, is because we all have relatives and friends who are in a particular situation where they need to be adjusted. They need to settle themselves because they're not criminals. They haven't violated any other than the fact that they are in the United States of America. Some of them are undocumented, and those people should not be treated any less than a human being. They should not be insulted. They should not be rounded up as though and put them in little cages and concentration camps and so forth. Long gone are those days. Those days are long gone. And I agree with you, Tom, that we have to respect the rights, the human rights of individuals, their dignity. And this approach from the Trump administration as to immigration, they have to take a second look. They cannot send ICE agents out there to basically run into people's homes and raid people's homes, run into churches, raid churches, walk into schools and check the identification of young people and these sort of things. It's not going to happen. It shouldn't be tolerated. What are we living under? A dictatorship? What is this? A Hitler regime? And Tom, I don't know. Sorry, I'm being a bit worked up, but go right ahead. Take over from me, please.
No, look, man, I grew up in South Florida. So, and I was here in the 80s with the Mariel boat lift. So for people who don't know what that is, it's when Castro loaded up boats on the island of Cuba and sent out hundreds of thousands of Cubans into South Florida just to abandon them here. Okay. And so I got to see firsthand, what it's like to live with an entire population of people, not just Cuba, by the way. We had a lot of Haitians here, Bahamians, a lot of people were here from other countries in South America, Colombians, and they were here in South Florida and are here in South Florida. And if you look at the South Florida community, if you look at the Miami skyline, which I saw it as a child, go from just a few little tall buildings here and there to now rivaling New York City for a skyline. I mean, it's one of the greatest skylines in the world. There are skyscrapers up and down for miles and miles and miles as far as the eye can see now in downtown Miami. All of that was built by an immigrant population that came here fleeing tyranny. Okay, I saw it with my own eyes. So I know what an immigrant population can do for the United States of America. I've seen those immigrants come up from countries all over Central and South America, from all over the Caribbean, here to South Florida to build what we see today, which is a mega city. Okay. And so that's what's here, and that's what cannot be kicked out. What needs to be kicked out are the criminal elements, the people who have come here just to wreak havoc, the gangsters, the drug lords, the human traffickers. Those people need to go. Okay. And that's our problem. But this has to be done. It has to be a team effort. The immigrant community has to help out. Sanctuary cities have to help out. Local and state governments have to help out. And I'm going to tell you, the agents, the ICE agents, these people are professionals. Okay. They want to do a professional job. They do not want to be going around the country going after the people who work every day, whose children are in our armed forces. They don't want to do that. They're not about that. So I think at the end of the day, what we're going to see, regardless of the rhetoric, is we're going to see this as a situation where two cities are going to be affected huge: Chicago and New York City. New York City probably the most. And yes, we will see some stuff that's out of control in New York City, I believe, but it's because the mayor is weak, because the mayor needs help. And so he's going to allow some things to happen in New York City. But with that said, outside of that, I think this is going to be something that is going to take a lot of work from everyone across the board. It's not going to be a heavy-handed thing. It can't be a heavy-handed thing because we need our immigrants for the economy. We need them culturally. We need them educationally. So I don't think we're going to be pushing everybody out just whole hog like that. It's going to be more targeted, and that's the way it should be.
All right, Tom Anderson, as we look just about 13 minutes before Trump is sworn in, and just to have folks who are concerned about maybe something as it pertains to immigration, just remain calm, guys. Do not panic. Remain calm. There is the law, and there's the rule of law, and people have to follow that. And not going about with big boots infringing on the rights of individuals, human rights of individuals. And Tom is correct. For the most part, they are professional immigration officers, ICE agents. They are, for the most part, professional. And so, of course, they have a job to do, but they also will have to follow the law. They can't just barge into people's homes or kick down people's homes and these sort of things. They have to follow the law. And I'm not sure that they are going to go around the place rounding up individuals and dashing them in a boat and just sending them back just like that. The issue, Tom, here now is due process. People have to have due process. Do you think they're going to infringe on that right?
Well, I think the issue is our Congress, right? That we have to have a Congress that creates the framework for people to be able to come in and out of our nation in a justified way, in a dignified way. Because what's happening now is our legislators have let us down and have let the world down, because no immigrant wants to come here in an undignified way. No one wants to have to live here in an undignified way, but they're being forced to, because our legislators don't have the wherewithal or the courage to write the kind of legislation needed to apply the rules of the road that everyone should be abiding by. And so that's where we really need the pressure to be, not on the executive branch and on Trump and these guys. The pressure has to be on the elected officials in Congress to get their act together and get legislation in there to create a system that makes sense, where everyone can live a existence here in the United States. And for those who are not, those criminal elements, that they get kicked out immediately. That's what has to happen, man. And I think that it's on the backs of our lawmakers. That's who this is, who this has to be. This problem has to be fixed by them. There's no other way that it can be done.
Well said, Thomas Anderson here. Tom, I know we've been on for a while. In just about 10 minutes, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in for a second term as President of the United States of America. Again, on the immigration front, we're asking people to remain calm. Do not be caught up in a hysteria situation and make wrong decisions. Do not allow some lawyers to put you in panic mode, because those lawyers would say, "Hey, call them right away for a consultation. Call them right away for a consultation." And come 1 second. Yeah, call them right away for a consultation. And that's exactly what's going on. So you guys have to be extra careful about that. If you notice, my boss is telling me we've been on for a while. So yes, sorry about that, guys. You've got to be extra careful about the situation. Do not panic. Absolutely do not panic. Tom, you want to add anything else as we prepare for that quote unquote big moment of Donald Trump's second inauguration?
Yeah, man. Look, man, it's you're right. This is one of those things where, people have to, there is campaign rhetoric, and there are things people are going to say on TV in order to get clicks, in order to get attention. That's how they make money. But when it comes to the actual working of the government, the actual working of the system, our system is broken. That's just flat out. It's been broken for a long time. It's been broken because our politicians have been taking advantage of a broken system. You can go all the way back to George Bush and his administration, where they tried to push through immigration reform. And they had this gang of 8. It was this bipartisan group of elected officials who had agreed on that. And they were going to craft new legislation and fix the immigration system once and for all. And what came out of that was this huge Tea Party movement. And they started calling their lawmakers on Capitol Hill, shutting down the phone lines. All of these radio show hosts, Rush Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, the Tea Party movement, Steve Bannon, they stood up and they shut that down. And so what happens? Obama comes into office. And by the way, one of the reasons why Obama beat McCain is because McCain was one of the gang of 8. McCain wanted to fix the immigration situation that the Tea Party was so adamant against. And so what happened was all of these, back then they were Tea Party. They're MAGA now, but the Tea Party people back then didn't come out to vote. And so that's why Obama won, mainly. And so Obama comes into office and he has an opportunity to fix the immigration issue. And there are books that have been written on this. Obama chose to do health care, Obamacare, and he purposefully chose not to touch immigration because it was an issue that they could use against the Republicans. And so what we're living today is a situation where a Democrat president consciously decided to make the immigration issue a political football that the Democrats could win elections off of. Okay. And so we're living that now. That's our problem, is we have politicized something that we shouldn't have politicized because of our desperation with the political situation that we have. And the situation is still being politicized. So people need to calm down a little. Don't fall for the politicization of this situation. Look at it for what it is. It is a broken system, but at the same time, it's a broken system that's being run by human beings, and most of them are professionals, and they do not want to veer outside of the law. They want to stay well within the law and not get in trouble. So this is going to be less of a big bang, all over the country, raids everywhere, and more of they're going to go in on places where they think they can get away with some things, and that's going to be New York City, that's going to be Chicago, and it's going to be a little bit less in other places.
Any word on the, see Desiree Simons is saying, any tips for the stock market on the
Cryptocurrency.
Talk to us quickly.
Cryptocurrency. Go all crypto. That's what the Trump thing is, cryptocurrency, man. That's what I would be messing with.
Yep. This is what's happening now, live. This is what's happening. Farewell. This is what's happening currently.
Press.
All right. So, Tom, as we say farewell for now, definitely we'll be back. We'll be keeping an eye, though, on the immigration executive orders, what it's going to be. And let me just say to you guys, there will be dozens of court orders to fight those Trump executive orders that infringes on your rights, infringes on your human rights and what the policies are for USCIS. Tom, any closing remarks for now?
Yeah, I think, people need to pray. People need to just stay steadfast, have faith. The one thing I know about America is this: even in our darkest hours, we always find a way to pull it out. It may not make sense and it may look crazy, but we tend to pull it out for what's right. And I think that's what we need, is people praying for that and people staying steadfast and earnest on that. Lots
and lots of things indeed. Tom Anderson, thank you so much. guys, don't go anywhere. And don't shut off from this link. We have a live event to take you to in Washington, D.C. But for now, Tom Anderson, thank you so much, as always, for your time. And let me say to all folks who are concerned about some sort of immigration situation you may be in, stay calm, do not panic, do not listen to rumors, just do not listen to individuals who say somebody said this and somebody said that. Wait to hear what those executive orders are about. And do not panic by lawyers some lawyers, mind you, not all. There's still many good lawyers out there who want to do the good things. But there are some lawyers who box you in a corner to tell you, call them now for consultation. Oh, you gotta come to a lawyer. Now, be careful, guys. Be careful. We don't want you to get hurt all around the place. We want you to get the sort of help that you should and you well deserve. Do not panic, guys. Do not panic. Tom, again, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care, everybody. It was great to be on again. Take care.
And guys, don't go anywhere. We will take you into a live event in Washington, D.C. Stay tuned right here. Do not click off the link.
The First Lady smiling, going in.
And now the handshake and the handoff of power begins here. Let's watch.
The Honorable William J. Clinton, accompanied by the Honorable Hillary Rodham Clinton. Ladies and gentlemen,